The updated trends tool allows you to quickly identify who's hot and who's not. And you can now do this by any number of rounds that you want. So right now I have it defaulted to the last 24 rounds. And this table at the top says, how is a golfer playing in the last 24 rounds compared to their 100 round baseline? And the reason that I chose 100 rounds is because 100 rounds to me tells you what a golfer is. It's basically a year's worth of data. That tells you what type of golfer they are, what their strengths are, and what their weaknesses are. So the way that this reads is that Tony Finau, strokes gained total, is 1.2 strokes better per round in his last 24 compared to his 100 round baseline. So that's not saying Tony Finau has gained 1.2 strokes per round over his last 24. In fact, it's probably much, much higher than that. But it's 1.23 strokes better per round compared to himself at his 100 round baseline. So it's basically saying Tony Finau is way hotter now than compared to his 100 round baseline. He's on fire. That can be the same for JT Poston, who is better than his 100 round baseline by almost the same rate that Tony Finau is. But for JT Poston, that 100 round baseline is probably lower, which means you could probably argue JT Poston's even hotter because he's playing over his head. I do break it down here into the strokes gain metrics because I think it's important to know. You want to know how a golfer is doing it. So, for example, let me find a bad example of this. Honestly, like Jordan Spieth and Victor Hovland would be pretty big. Actually, Jordan Spieth would be probably the best example of this. So Jordan Spieth is a quarter of a stroke over his 100 round baseline. So you'd say, wow, that's really good. Until you realize he's been worse tee to green, he's been worse off the tee, he's been worse on approach, and a hot putter is the only thing that has kind of saved him. And if we didn't have the breakdown here, we would have looked at this and said, wow, Jordan Spieth is hotter than his 100 round baseline. That's great news. It is, but it's not. It's really just his putter. So if we go back to our Tony Finau example, well, this is what you kind of want to see. Yeah, Tony Finau is definitely putting way better than his 100 round baseline, a half a stroke better per round. However, on top of that, he's been way better off the tee, way better on approach, and just a hair better around the green. That's a great stat profile for someone who is really, really hot. You flip it around, you look at the guys who are not hot, right? This is the guys that are trending in the wrong direction. Same thing, just kind of the opposite. If you scroll down, I put this in a chart, and this chart, it doesn't look very crowded because there's only 29 golfers in this field as I'm recording this. But this is something I call breakout candidates. And this is truly just a way to find golfers who are probably on the verge of a breakout. And the way that I do that is via a couple of things. How are they hitting it from tee to green? And then are they getting lucky or unlucky putting? So again, I'm using a golfer's putting baseline to determine whether they're getting lucky or not. So if a golfer's 100 round baseline is 0 and they are losing a half a stroke per round in the last 24, that says that if they get back to their norm, if they go back to their average, which is reasonable to think, they are going to be gaining a half a stroke per round. Then you combine that onto how they're hitting the ball, and you can find guys who are on the verge of a breakout. So what you want is you want golfers who are in this upper left-hand quadrant, ones that are hitting it well from tee to green, but are below their putting baseline. And the idea is they're going to continue to hit it well from tee to green. They're going to get back to their own putting baseline, and you add that up, and you've got breakout candidates. This does not imply that bad putters are going to become good putters, okay? So Hideki Matsuyama, who is honestly a much improved putter, but he's the guy that I like to use for this example, for a long time has been a negative putter. I'm not asking him to go out and be a hot putter in a week. I'm just asking him to get to his average, and his average might be negative, and that's okay. But that's why I like this tool, because it allows everybody to play to their average. You want golfers in the upper left-hand quadrant. That's the 2 greens. That's where the likely breakout candidates are coming from. If you can't get golfers there, you want golfers in the upper right, which is guys that are hitting it well from tee to green, but they're getting a little lucky with the putter. They're putting over their baseline. If you can't have that, the third best would be guys that are down here in the bottom left. They're not hitting it well from tee to green, but they're getting unlucky with the putter. So maybe there's a bit of regression there. And then the guys in the bottom right are kind of the worst of it. Guys that are hitting it poorly and are putting over their baseline. So it's actually likely that they're going to fall off, which is a little bit concerning, but that's the general idea here. So you can control the number of rounds that you see very quickly just up here in the upper right. So if you do the last 8 rounds, Sepp Straka becomes the man, because it's a much smaller sample size, obviously, and then this chart down here will update itself. But a really good way to identify who's playing over their head, who's playing below it, and the likelihood of them actually breaking out.